Thank you for reminding me. I always forget that until about 2 minutes into it. Okay, we're recording. Danny, I think we're ready. We're recording.
Okay.
Ready for his invitation.
I know. Take out some frustration on that, Bill, huh? Welcome to the Rotary Club of Kerrville. We're so excited to see you and some new faces. It's just awesome. John, I haven't seen you in forever. It's good to have you back. Bruce is here, and I haven't seen him many times in person. It's just fun. So thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate you being here. You may notice that we put the head table up today. That's about the closest sense of normalcy we're going to do for a while. We're going to go into everything very slowly, continue with our mask and our social distancing. So thank you all for being here, and welcome to each person that is online with us. I'd like to remind you to silence your cell phones, and also for our visitors online to mute your computers. And I believe we have Austin Dixon that will be giving us the pledge and the invocation. He's online.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Would you pray with me, please? Gracious and loving God, we come before you grateful today, grateful for this time we have together, grateful for the coming spring, grateful for the community in which we live, and especially grateful for its leaders, like our guest speaker today. We ask that you make your presence known to anyone in our club and their family members, or to anyone in our community struggling during this pandemic or the aftermath of the winter storm. We further ask that you bestow us with the compassion and will to help those in need and continue being of service today and every day. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the
of the United States of America and to the republic
Which is
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, guys, if you all have a seat, our program director, Clint, is out of town right now. So I get the pleasure, and when I say
I think he's online.
pleasure, to introduce our city manager, my friend, Mark McDaniel. Mark McDaniel's 35 years of experience in municipal government management now spans 7 Texas cities, with an emphasis on finance, organizational development, performance improvement, planning, and economic development. In May of 2017, Mark was appointed to serve as city manager of Kerrville. Prior to moving to the Hill Country, Mark served as assistant city manager for the city of Dallas, where he was responsible for a portfolio of departments that comprised of 2,600 employees and a combined annual operating budget of $753 million. Previously, Mark served as city manager for the city of Tyler. Mark has also served as assistant city manager for Corpus Christi, city manager for Woodway, assistant city manager for Lake Jackson, and budget officer for Denton. A leader in his profession, Mark was named City Administrator of the Year by the Texas City Management Association in 2010. He has served as president of the Texas City Management Association and vice president for the International City County Management Association, representing the Central United States. Mark earned his undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of North Texas. Mark has also attended Harvard University Senior Executive in Land Government Program and has taught graduate level coursework as an adjunct faculty member. Mark and his wife Cindy have been married for 34 years and are proud parents of 3 grown children and now have 3 beloved grandchildren. And if you will help me welcome Mark McDaniel, he's going to talk to us about the future of Kerrville. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tammy. And it's a pleasure to be with you here in person this afternoon. This is my first trip back to the club in person for some time, since pre-pandemic, actually. I've been watching you all online with there's kind of a club online or virtually that we kind of bonded, I think. And they do a good job with that. And so we're able to participate. But this is so much more special to see so many friends and people I haven't seen for so long. It does feel a little bit more normal, and it's so nice to kind of inch toward normalcy. I hope you'll find my update today interesting and informative. Clint has asked me to talk more on the near-term kinds of initiatives that are either going on right now that you're kind of, what's that going on over there in terms of a development, or what are you all doing on this subject or that subject, so that I can provide you some information straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I do want to begin, and I always like to do this because it is so true, by extending my appreciation to our city council, because you all have heard the expression, it all starts from the top. So that attitude and that sense of teamwork starts at the top, and our council continues to work as a team today, and they don't always agree for sure, but that's good too, because then we end up with the best result in the end. So I know that several online, and in fact, they humbled me yesterday and surprised me with the acknowledgement of my 35 years in service. And Councilman Cochran said he's never seen me blush like that, but it started counting it up. Yeah, it has been 35 years. It's been a long time. And this has been a particularly more difficult year, as you can imagine. Those in public service and those of you that are on the front lines and volunteering or in your own businesses and industries, you're a little numb right now, like what's going to happen next. But I think the future is bright for all of us, and I want to talk to you about that specifically with regard to Kerrville. Thank you, Tammy. So this first slide, this image here, I'm sure you have seen this kind of thing before. This is word art. It's not the Michelin Man. It looks a little bit like the Michelin Man, but this is actually.
Mark, Dave, you need to screen share, otherwise those of us that are out here cannot.
Okay, I'll let the capable technician deal with that.
Yeah, please. Good time to get a drink anyways, right?
That's right, wet the whistle.
There we go, something's happening. Okay, we got it, Mark. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. The outline of this is actually what we call our ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. And so when the city hits 25,000 population, which we basically are, I would expect that within the next 12 months, the council will actually declare that with census data out or not. And so our ETJ extends from 1 mile to 2 miles outside of our city limits. And all that really means is that it extends our planning area beyond our city limits. It does not mean that we automatically annex or extend services or anything like that. We don't really annex anymore unless it's voluntary. Somebody asks us to be inside city limits. The state has made it pretty prohibitive, and it can be very difficult. So we wait for people to come to us, and we still see that with places like Comanche Trace, so to speak. So you notice in this word art some particular words like community and natural and beauty and grow. And I want you to remember those because you're going to see them a little bit later as well. Uh-oh. Okay, yours is working. It's not on the screen though. Where's the projector?
You're still screen sharing.
Are you seeing the next slide?
No, I'm seeing the same one.
Okay.
I don't know how we're out of sync. Are we screen sharing from the same computer? Is the computer that's projecting the computer that's also screen sharing?
We have help on the way.
Yeah,
It's coming.
we have to screen share from the same computer that's running the projection.
Okay,
I think we're technically adjusting now. I have a nice picture top of your head.
Let's see if that works.
Okay. We have advanced, we're on the community's plan right now. And now we're back to the cover page.
Awesome. Okay, are you seeing the next slide now?
Yes, I am. I think
Okay,
we're,
awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I want to focus on 7 areas in terms of recent and near-term projects. First of all, public infrastructure, which would include buildings as well. Residential development, so you're seeing some of that around. Primary job creation, retail strategies, tourism strategies, tactical tools, and financial strength or strategies. First of all, I don't like to really start any presentation without bringing us back to the what started this all, at least for me, since I have been here in Kerrville. And I think it's important to remember why Kerrville 2050 came about in the first place. We were just about to turn 25,000, and we are now. We're seeing growth come this way. We know it's inevitable. We're seeing it accelerate, especially with regard to housing sales in the housing market. We're seeing new businesses come to town. But at the same time, Kerrville 2050 is all about how do we preserve the place that we all moved here for or stayed here for in the first place, that unique natural beauty, small town charm. We like growth, but we like it a certain way. We like it in a managed way, an orderly way, and we want to preserve all the things that we love about Kerrville. So that's what Kerrville 2050 is all about. So you'll remember those words I mentioned earlier. You'll see them in this vision statement, respecting the natural environment that surrounds it, economic growth, prosperity, small town charm, culture of the community. So this became the basis of the entire 400-page document, and still is today. In fact, it's got a life of its own. I'll be in meetings that people don't even know who I am, and they'll start talking about Kerrville 2050, and that's pretty rewarding, where you've got that kind of buy-in to your comprehensive plan. So we do call it the communities plan. As you see here, it was a watershed effort, no doubt. There have been hundreds of actions already taken on this plan. As the council takes action every or twice a month, on their agenda, they'll have an icon next to every single action item that's related to Kerrville 2050. And the agenda bill, which is a description of the agenda item, it describes how it relates to Kerrville 2050. So they know they're executing on the plan and that we're making progress. But it's not been just the plan itself that has developed a lot of new actions. You'll see additional planning efforts here that have also come about, like the long-range water plan, a workforce housing study and strategic plan, and so on. I won't go into any of these into detail, but we are tracking all of these as well. Now talking about public infrastructure, and I will spend quite a bit of time on this slide. Because these are all very near term, or they already have just recently been completed. So last night, the council executed a contract or approved a contract to develop the Ellenberger well, the first one that we've drilled over near our new reuse pond, where we are producing about 750 gallons a minute, which is a big deal. Mayor Kronwelge over here will tell you that all of Fredericksburg is on the Ellenberger aquifer. So we are now tapping into the Ellenberger with this new well, and we have plans for additional wells in partnership with Headwaters. So they helped to drill it. Then once they drilled it, we took it over, and we now have a contract to develop that well and plug it into our system. Olympic Drive extension, I'm sure you all have seen the new road going in there by the middle school. That was a joint project between multiple parties, not just the city, but also Shriner University was involved, of course, KISD, and the Economic Improvement Corporation helped to fund a portion of that. KPUB put the utilities underground. And so that road will be open right after spring break. And we want to have some experience with that before the school opens. So we're going to go ahead and open that with the ribbon cutting. It'll be fully functional with the signal there as well. So it'll also create some new opportunities for development. So right there next to it on the other side of Olympic Drive, The city has a partnership with Lennar Homes, which I'll talk about more in a moment. Legion Lift Station was recently completed, and it's over there right off of Loop 534 and Junction Highway, right in that vicinity. And that is a really important lift station. We've doubled the capacity of our sewer treatment or sewer pumping. So we've opened up a whole third of our community for new development. Before that happened, when somebody would come to us in that part of the city and they wanted to develop, we'd say, we don't have any more capacity. And that extended all the way into portions of the downtown. It's a giant area. And so now that that lift station is open, we are now able to be open for business in another third of our city. Major street improvements. This council in the last year approved certificates of obligation in the amount of $10 million, which hasn't been done in quite some time, because we knew that we had to get a head start or a jump on our street improvements and our drainage improvements. And so those are the next two items that you see here. The first round of those street improvements you saw this last year before the winter hit with on Francesco Lemos, for example, and other portions around the downtown area, the complete reconstruction of streets. You haven't seen that in a while in Kerrville, and we're glad to be able to do that. The next round of that, with that same funding that I mentioned, is going to be primarily in the Doral area, where we've got streets that are in poor condition that need to be rebuilt. And then, of course, we have ongoing maintenance of our streets with slurry seal and crack seal and other maintenance methods that you've seen a lot of that last year. So we've really increased the level of effort there. And with regard to major drainage improvements, our first project, which is just about engineered, is what we call the Lowest Street and Take It Easy drainage project. So right there off of Junction Highway, where you have Take It Easy RV park, and the drainage facility goes all the way to the river. We're going to redo that drainage facility south of the Junction Highway. TxDOT's going to take care of Junction Highway as far as enlarging the culverts. And then we'll do drainage improvements north that'll take care of some of the flooding that we see in the Lowest Street area. We did our first ever, complete our first ever drainage master plan also within the last couple of years, and this was #1 on the list. Council authorized the funding, engineers just about done. So we're going to get that kicked off here soon as well. New public safety building. We haven't done anything but an assessment of what our needs are in this regard. The cost is something that's been a hurdle for us, but we are exploring other options. And I think probably within the next 6 months, you'll hear more about what our strategies might be for a new public safety building that would be a new police department, also house our fire administration and a new municipal court. If you've ever been in the police department, which is our old bus station, those guys are just on top of each other in terms of just getting around the corner of the building inside, and multiple uses of different rooms and going through closets to get to the next room, and it's a mess. And all of its systems are failing. It's just HVAC and mechanical, and it's just an old building. So we can do better, and I think we've got a plan that we're developing that will work. NAP lift station and trunk system. This is a sewer system that will also enable more capacity to the west toward Ingram. We are limited capacity in that direction as well. In fact, Yogi Bear wants to expand, but they can't because there's not enough sewer capacity. So we're going to begin upsizing that with funding that we had left over from the Legion Lift Station project, and that the council authorized the contract for the design of that last night. So that's a very near-term effort. Future river trail extensions. On this front, the Economic Improvement Corporation approved a concept plan for a new segment that would run from G Street on the north side of the river all the way over to the downtown. So you'd have the trail on both sides of the river. And so that's being studied now by John Hewitt, who has done most of the other segments of the trail. And that report will probably come to the EIC in the summertime as far as what the possibilities are. It's not funded, but we want an idea of the scope, and there could be different phases of that or layers of that. So we're excited to see that come forward. Sidney Baker Bridge improvements. We're in the process of submitting for a TxDOT grant to enhance pedestrian access on Sidney Baker Bridge. There's a very narrow sidewalk that goes across it now. So we're trying to make that larger and put some separation from the traffic, and also put in maybe some ornamental rails and ornamental lighting and kind of dress the bridge up with, again, some grant funding that we're competing for with TxDOT. And then Main Street has also applied for a grant to improve the walkability in the downtown, particularly as it relates to the signals and getting across streets, not just Sidney Baker, but also down on Water and Earl Garrett and other places. So all that is in the works. Again, these are near term. We've got a lot longer term, but these are things that are about to pop. The next slide is about primary job creation. I won't spend too much time on this because I know that you've heard a lot of this, but there's a lot happening. And not just with Killdeer, but also other smaller industries that are either already in the works of coming here or talking seriously about coming here. And then we've had expansion of our existing businesses with Kerrville State Hospital and All Plastics. And then James Avery's Craftsman is back up to pre-COVID levels, which is pretty tremendous for us. They've also had a tremendous impact on our sales tax, which I'll talk about in a moment. On residential development, I'm sure most of you have heard by now about the new development agreement with Lennar Homes. We're gifting them the property in exchange for them to develop about 125 workforce housing homes. And again, it's right, that property is across from the new middle school on Olympic Drive, about 34 acres. So the deal is that we'll take it up to a certain point for development with regard to platting, and then they take it over in terms of they got to put their own streets in and utilities, which is about a $5 million investment. And we don't deed the land to them until they're through with their development process and put up some money to ensure that the roads and the utilities will be done. So real excited about that project in particular because this is so needed in our community. And it would be for people that would earn somewhere around 80% of area median family income. And that's a different number for how many people you've got in your house and so forth. So it floats, and it floats year to year based upon what the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs tells us. But also we have some much needed multifamily. You know, not everybody can afford to buy a house, but we have the Landing that's coming on board. They're about to in fact, I think they've started leasing perhaps on Nimitz Lake. And they've already pulled permits for their next phase. They'll begin development of their next phase beyond what you see there on the ground now. Ciendaro Ridge is finally opened there on Loop 534. Lehman Drive, there's a senior living development that's been approved for behind Peterson Hospital. And then the Holdsworth project would be affordable housing just right over here off of Holdsworth and Pascal. Is another tax credit project that's in the works. It's competitive. They got to apply for the tax credits statewide. It looks very favorable. So some real pluses on the housing side. This won't be enough, but it's going to be a good start. And then we're also seeing a lot of infill housing where you have a lot here or there, and you've already got the infrastructure in, the streets there, utilities in many cases. And so the cost of developing is less. Or we're seeing some tear downs and rebuilds. And so there's a lot of that going on in town, especially with regard to such a hot housing market. Retail strategies. So we are quickly becoming a larger retail hub within the entire larger region. When you look especially at our big box retailers like Home Depot and Lowe's, they've done extremely well through the pandemic. So has McCoy's, so has Harbor Freight, and of course HEB does very well. James Avery's doing extremely well. And then online sales have really helped us a lot. As you look at in fact, today I got a report for our March sales tax collections, which we're still in a pandemic, and they're 18% greater than they were the same month for last year. So this graph that you see here in the red, that was the only month that we were down, the month of April, in the middle of the pandemic. And then in the green that I've got circled there for last month, February reflects December sales because there's a 2-month lag from the time that the sale occurs and then the state remits the sales tax to us. So again, February represents December sales. So we saw our highest ever sales tax collections last month or a couple of months ago for December sales, which is remarkable. The average statewide for this month was 1.5%. San Antonio was 0.5%. Fredericksburg was, I think, 20%. So we are doing very well on the sales tax front. That's a big deal because that's our second largest source of funding for government, police and fire and streets and all that stuff. So it's a really important thing for us, and we're staying strong. This is not the case statewide and certainly not nationwide, and so we're very fortunate. On tourism strategies, we are benefiting from RV and cabin and Airbnbs for this drive-to market. When it comes to our larger hotels, they're not doing so well. Their occupancy rates are down. Their average daily room rate is down. But what's keeping it afloat is people want to have that separate cabin. They want to stay in a B&B. And so we're climbing back out. In fact, the occupancy is now getting back to pre-COVID levels. And a big driver on this, of course, is the Kerrville Shriner Park. So if you stay less than 30 days, you start being subject to the hotel tax. And then River Trail is also a big draw, as you can imagine. And the Kerrville Sports Complex, which is the graph that you see here, this last year, even during a pandemic, that last kind of a red or maroon bar, we almost doubled the number of teams that we brought in from outside during a pandemic year. And so those folks are staying in our hotels and eating in our restaurants and helping keep our local economy alive. And it's a big deal for us. And they're telling us that this next year is even going to break that number. So it's a big deal for Kerrville, and tourism has been one of the hardest industries hit nationwide, the hospitality industries, as you can imagine, including restaurants. And so we're glad to see that we're that drive-to market and that people want to get here where they have outdoor activities and so forth and have something to do. Going forward, we'll see the Arcadia play a large role. They're not able to do a lot right now given the pandemic, but they're keeping things going, and they have big plans going forward. I know that Bill Rector was here talking to you a while back about the Heart of Hills Heritage Center. We're almost ready to pull the trigger on that. We had $4 million that have been locked in, and we had $1 million more to get. And Bill and his group are almost halfway there on that $1 million. So we're real excited and hope we're able to get that project going within the next year. We also have reignited our Main Street program with a new board, and they are out doing their own retail strategy for the downtown using the same firm that we use citywide to help recruit new retail, regional retail into Kerrville. So they're talking to some boutique kinds of stores to go into retail spaces in the downtown. They've done a study on what we could support. They've done a study on who's coming here now and where the gaps are that we might be able to fill. And then this last note here, convention center on hold. With the hospitality industry where it is right now, even the Marriott that we've all been talking about on that Water Street is on hold. They've got their building permit, but they lost their financing. And it's understandable during a market like this, but they're still working on it, and it's going to bounce back. In the meantime, they're ready to go. They've got all their approvals, including their building permit, and so we're encouraged that will still happen, but it's just not yet. As far as a convention center hotel, we're talking about a $45 million, $60 million project. That's just not going to happen, and not right now. And so, we need to be looking at other ways to be able to host large groups for meetings and so forth. But we haven't given up on it, but right now it's just not the time. So tactical tools, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's a little bit of inside baseball. But we have been making a lot of improvements very quietly in our development services department with more staffing, incorporating new software so it's more user-friendly in terms of getting a permit, even when you can't get there because there's snow on the ground, and just general process improvements, re-engineering our processes. We've got a new zoning code for the first time in almost 30 years, thank goodness. We got a new sign code. We're working on a new subdivision code. In fact, Mary Ellen Summerlin back here in the back, she's the chair of that committee, the code review committee. And they've got a meeting coming up at the end of March to look at the latest draft of the new subdivision code, which is also probably 30 or 40 years old. So it'd be nice to finally get those things in order and more streamlined. And then the council recently adopted the 2018 versions of new building codes, mechanical codes, fire codes, and so forth. So we're poised. We are poised for things to happen. We are still seeing people come to us wanting to develop in a lot of different ways. They're familiar with all these codes, so it'll be easier for them as opposed to going back to the 2006 codes, which is what we were operating from. So we're really pleased to be at this point in the process. And then finally, before we want to certainly open it up to questions, financial strategies. You know, it's one thing to have the dream about all these kinds of things, but you got to have your house in order and your finances in order to be able to do it all, right? So due to budget cuts and stronger than anticipated revenues in last year, at the end of last fiscal year, reserves were stronger and greater than any time in the city's history. So we, in anticipation of some deep revenue shortfalls, we went and we sliced the budget pretty heavily in terms of cutting back. And then we anticipated that we would not have strong revenues. We came out of this with some CARES funding, which helped us as well. Not a tremendous amount, but some that would help offset some of our revenue losses, particularly in the areas of municipal court and ambulance revenue, believe it or not, and some other areas. We also refinanced some debt. You know, interest rates have never been lower, historic lows. We're selling debt at 1%. And so we refinanced anything we could, and we're able to lower our debt obligations. When we went and got refinanced, we even during the pandemic and what was happening with other economies, they affirmed our AA bond rating, which was a great testament to our debt profile and our reserves and our budget management. And then for this year, we were pretty conservative. Nobody knew what was going to happen, right? And so we adopted a very conservative budget, and even raises we didn't really provide. We provided some lump sum adjustments, but it didn't go to their base because we didn't want that to compound on us the next year. So our employees were very understanding of that. The council was very supportive, and we're setting ourselves up very well for the next fiscal year with enough reserves to do what we need as far as capital improvements, and then just dealing with the day-to-day. And just as a final note, during all the pandemic and snowstorm and then preceding it, we've actually had 3 tax rate reductions in the last 4 years. Now, we've had growth in property values that have allowed for that, but we didn't have to reduce the rate. And the council felt like it was the responsible thing to do in terms of the impact to our citizens and our businesses to keep that business-friendly environment. And so we can do that and still have a sustainable budget. We do a 5-year forecast every year that we do a budget, so that we're looking not just this year, but 5 years out every time we put a budget together. Making some assumptions, of course, but we don't, operate in a vacuum in terms of making sure that going forward, we're in good shape. So last slide is just closing remarks, and then I'll open up for questions. Is again, through all, whether it was the pandemic and now the snowstorm, projects are happening. We haven't lost sight of what we are here to do, and we get curveballs thrown at us in terms of surprises, like all of you do. But business has got to go on, right? And there's things that have to be done in terms of serving our community and making sure that we're looking beyond this year, but well into the future, to make sure that we are poised for prosperity while maintaining Kerrville, the Kerrville that we all love. Okay. So with that, Madam President, I'll open up for questions.
Yes.
Okay. Questions?
Mark?
Yes.
This is Tom Martin at Peterson Health Foundation. And I'm wondering why in all conversations is the medical community not really mentioned as a major driver in the economic, housing, and retail viability of Kerrville. And I'm specifically thinking about Peterson Health, of course, but we don't enter into the conversation. We don't get any kind of credit for the vibrancy of the community, for the people we bring to town, for the housing that we require, for the size of our payroll and our employee base, which my understanding is we're the largest employer in Kirk County. But we're never in the conversation. We're never mentioned by the city. What is the reason for that? And I'm not complaining. I'm just wondering, because even in our plan, which I'm all behind everything that's going on, I think everything is in good shape. But we had barely just a very minor mention in that plan. And every time I see a presentation, the health community, the medical professionals, all the folks who are here are just not mentioned, as if we don't exist. Why is that?
Well, actually, you are. What I tried to focus today on were projects that we were directly involved in as a city. But at the State of the City address a couple of months ago, we acknowledged that. You are the largest employer, Peterson. We have lots of conversations with Corey Edmondson about, how we can support that industry in our community. And even in Kerrville 2050, it is recognized as the largest employer. We haven't lost sight of that for sure. We recognize that. It goes beyond Peterson, right? I think that the figure is that for every one doctor that you recruit, contribute something like $1.5 million to your economy. It has that kind of multiplier factor. And that information is actually in our comprehensive plan as well. So we do recognize that. If Gil was standing up here talking to you about an economic development presentation, I'm sure you'd hear Gil say that. But thank you for pointing that out. And we highly value our medical industry here. It's why many of us moved here, because we had that amenity here. If we didn't have medical and all the other things, it wouldn't be that attractive a place to live.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, sir. In the audience.
South side of the highway, what is going to be done with that development? That area is like, got plenty of structures in it. RVs, camping, that type of thing. Areas of that park are virtually unusable. Actually, they're something to be said, the western side of that park. Cedar Pit is so deep and rain is so difficult. Is there any plan in the budget to relieve or develop or raise?
Yeah, I had to get my deputy city manager up here to answer that question. He's sitting right behind you, EA Hoppy. But EA and his team with Ashley have been working really hard, and our engineer, on, first of all, fixing some of the infrastructure we have that's existing so that we can better serve the RV spaces that are there now on the riverside. Now, we also, with the RV market taking off, we recognize the need for, to pursue that and capitalize on that market. So we're developing larger plans for the more RV space on the the south side. And so yes, to answer your question, right now we've authorized a study of that got some help to study that, but that is not funded as far as any improvements yet. John.
Let me just comment, that area, those folks that walk in there, that's the most wonderful place from the standpoint of trails. It's like being on trail, walking back in there, climbing the hills, and a lot of mountain bikers are back in there. That's one of the most wonderful parts in our community, actually, from the standpoint of hiking and mountain biking.
Thank you for that, John. There's a lot of volunteers that have actually helped with the effort to create those trails. And we are also cognizant of the need to protect that park. There's been talk about putting a road through there to connect over to, Medina Highway, or, if the housing development had gone in around it, how are we going to protect the boundary of that park and so forth. So it's a huge asset that we acquired from the state, and we want to make sure that it remains that way and that we make those kinds of improvements. Thank you for that. I didn't ask him to ask that question. Thank you, Roy. I'm sure y'all saw when the governor came out initially that we were not on the list of priority counties that were going to receive FEMA aid. We fixed that in terms of getting him to acknowledge it. Now the application is with the feds as far as them confirming it, but we did an assessment. It's pretty heavy. And it, some obvious things like some broken pipes and things of that nature as far as public infrastructure. But our roads are a concern because those are starting to unravel on us. Y'all probably seen it, more potholes, right? You may have seen a little white residue on top of the street in locations coming out of cracks. That's the base that's coming up out of the cracks in the pavement. And so the severe weather has taken its toll, and that's going to be something that, we were already playing catch up on streets and doing a good job. And now, it's one step back now. So we actually are filing for help with some of that, or will, when we get the opportunity to perhaps get some funding to help repair some of that. Ladies in the back. Right. Mm-hmm. So you own it? Oh, great.
Mark, can you tell us what the question is?
Yes, thank you. So she is asking, my insurance agent is asking, little commercial there. So about the property behind her and how she might go about assessing the development of that piece of property. So first thing you need to know is what's the zoning. What can be built there now. It doesn't mean you can't change the zoning and create something else. But I would suggest that you talk to Drew Paxton, who's our planning director, and also look at Kerrville 2050 because that area is a catalyst area, and you'll see suggested types of development for that area and what in our planning efforts we thought would be a good fit in terms of compatibility and being successful. Yes, ma'am.
Right by the Star.
Water Street.
Yeah.
Any ideas how long we're going to?
So the city has.
Please repeat the question.
Okay, I'm sorry. So she's asking about the signal at Water and Earl Garrett. We only own 3 signals, believe it or not, the city. That's one of them. And I'm sure it's an issue where we've got some part that's old. So remember that comment I made earlier about a Main Street program grant to enhance pedestrian improvements. It would also help with that situation at that light as well. So it's on the radar, but we're just not there yet. It's old. Yes, sir.
Have y'all ever thought about dropping utilities underground like they do in a lot of other cities?
Sure. So right now, KPUB,
Tell us
the
the
next
question, please.
We can't hear the questions.
All right, I'll try to remember, guys. Sorry. I should know that because I've been with y'all. So the question was, is there any efforts to bury utility lines so that you don't have all that visual clutter with the poles and so forth? So KPUB is the driver on that. As y'all know, KPUB is not really a department of the city. They're a component unit of the city with their separate board. But all that said, they are working on the multiple plans. They do it where they can. So for example, the new extension of Olympic Drive, they put all that underground. It would, instead of putting those poles up all the way down Olympic, they put them underground. They also have done a lot of that on Water Street in the downtown already. And then they're working on a project to go to the library to do that, and then up Clay Street. So it's incremental because it's so incredibly expensive. But they do it where they can. And of course, River Hill, all of that's underground. And of course, the power outages we had recently were because of rolling power outages, allegedly rolling. But you don't see power out in River Hill too often, other than that situation, because when we have a storm, the trees don't take down lines. And so there is a big benefit to that. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, can you, I don't know if you're able to speak to this at all, or if it's a county issue, but can you speak to the state of vaccination? Our county seem to be quite a bit behind other counties around this.
So yes, latest on that.
Question, please.
Yes. The question was about vaccines. And can you give us the latest update? So on vaccines, got an update on that this morning. And believe it or not, when you look at the vaccination rate per capita per county, we're right there with the rest of counties. The problem is that includes the state school, the state hospital, it includes the VA, it includes other places that are not necessarily our general population. Also, when you look at the over 65 population, up 2 weeks ago, we were behind the average. And so that's why you started seeing a lot of vaccines come our way, because we've had lots of conversations with state officials about trying to help us with that. This Saturday, we'll have 1,100 more vaccinated at our mass vaccination clinic at First United Methodist Church. And we're continuing to see vaccines come in. We had, I think today I saw there's been 10,000 people vaccinated that live in Kerr County. Now they may have gotten their vaccination somewhere else, but if they live in Kerr County, there's been 10,000. And if you look at the over 65 population, I want to say, help me out, Stuart, it's like 18,000, 14,000, something like that. So we're inching forward, and we're also every day getting notification of more and more vaccines becoming available. So I'm encouraged. You know, what happens a lot of times too, how many of y'all have had a vaccine, at least one dose, if you feel free in saying so? Okay, so that's a good number of you. You found a way to do it. And out of town, yeah. The other thing that's happening is, like with our own clinic, we had at one point 8,000 people pre-registered. Well, they go somewhere else and they get it, or they don't show up, and at the last minute, we got to use that vaccine, or otherwise it's going to go bad. So we start going down the list and calling somebody, and we might even call people that aren't on the list just to get it filled. So, you know, especially when you're looking at Walgreens or HEB and those folks, they'll open up and you think they're closed and they're not. And so you just have to keep watching it. And the problem is still a shortage nationwide, of course, but I think that will improve. And not, in months, I think it's a matter of weeks. Other questions? How about my buddies online? Yes.
So I'm happy to hear that you have a basic program. I was in another community involved and I was just wondering if you all have looked into that, or having enough support to fill out this plan would help and open up some resources there.
Yeah, so the question was,
Thank you.
when are we going to pursue a Keep Texas Beautiful affiliate program? And we filed for that initially. Then the pandemic hit. I know the mayor is working on an initiative that is more countywide based. I'm very familiar with the program from other communities I've served who've been award winners, actually. It's a great program. I'm a big believer in it, but the ball's kind of in the mayor's court right now.
So is that going to be spearheaded by the city?
The ball's in the mayor's court right now. I'm not sure what that looks like. He's working with a group of individuals and they're trying to define what the scope of that's going to be. They really want it to be countywide, because dark skies are not just for Kerrville, they're for the county, or tree preservation, or recycling, or what have you. So more of a regional effort as opposed to just city centric. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. We really appreciate it. And that was all great news and very well done. I can tell you that in my job, I am able to see things as they're occurring because that's my job. And I can tell you that it's so impressive to see at the city with the staff, when there's something that hits the news, they already have a plan for it. They're already ready. So you should be very impressed with your city management and staff. I'd like to it's time for our club business. So I'd like to call Carol Holmes up. We would like to present you with your Paul Harris +6.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I didn't see Stephanie Miller online. Stephanie, are you here for your families in Rotary? I don't think that we are, and I didn't receive anything to announce. If anybody has anything to share about any of our membership, please let us know. But I did want to talk to you about welfare calls. I talked to you last week a little bit about an example was Glenn Crane. He isn't able to come in person. Nobody had checked on him, and he had been going through a difficult time and lost his wife. So if you have a pal that you were used to sitting with here and you haven't seen him, let's give each other a call. Just call somebody that you used to sit with and you haven't seen in a while, and let's just check up on each other. Okay, and your board is checking on people too, but I just think that would be a great thing to do. Invoices, we're getting ready to bill again. So if you haven't paid for your January invoice.
We've lost your audio.
I have not. Yes, we have now.
Do you hear me now?
Yes. I hear you.
Okay. If you haven't paid your January invoices, you're about to get billed again. So please go look in your books and see if you've paid it. If you haven't, let us know. We'll send you a new invoice out right away. So thank you so much for that. Blood drive, also a good time for me to thank the city of Kerrville for helping us out. There was a glitch on the website for the South Texas Blood and Tissue Center. We were booked and we could schedule if you were logged in as a Rotarian, but nobody else could see it. So we weren't getting very many people signing up. And so I sent out the word to our club and to ask Mike Hayes, who had graciously passed along our list before, and they helped us, and and it's filling up, but we do need you to make your appointment for our blood drive. It's next Tuesday from 10 to 3 at the Hill Country Youth Event Center. And it's really important right now. They really need us. So if you can do it, please do. And if not, tell people about it. I would also now like to call in Jeff, who will introduce our guest and talk a little bit about the main event.
Thank you, President Tammy. I'd like to start with our guest, then we'll jump into the main event. Jeff Wendling, you have a couple of guests with us now today, returning. So if you would, please, sir.
Shannon, the bill, like the cat, and we're talking about Bill Walker.
I'm going to thank y'all for joining us. That was Shannon DeVille and General Walter from Shriner Institute. David Reist has a guest with us today.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Kevin Pelosi. He's the general manager at the John Deere dealership up on Marco Road. Tell us industries. He says they're doing well too for retail sales. We have a road to a different location, more chainsaws and stuff. People are getting ready for spring cleanup. He invites y'all to buy it. Their location up on Marco Road.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. Kevin, thank you for being here. Kevin's joining us today from the John Deere dealership on Harper Road. They sell the big green tractors, if y'all don't know those. So, George Eichner has a guest with us today. Thank you, George. Mary Ellen, thank you for being here. Our virtual world, that is Mary Ellen Summerlin. who is with us today as well. And then I'm going to ask our speaker to introduce his guest to us as well.
Okay.
Looks like you got two of them.
Yeah. So I have E.A. Hoppy, who's our Deputy City Manager. And he is dynamite, y'all. Just got to tell you. And then Stuart Cunhas, our Public Information Officer. So Stuart has got like 5 hands. He during the storm, I think he put out, we counted him 77 press releases, 5 videos, and I don't know what else, but he's amazing. So thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Mark. If y'all didn't hear, that's Stuart Cunhas, who's the Public Affairs Officer for the city, as well as E.A. Hoppy, who's the Assistant City Manager for Mark. So thank y'all for all being here with us today. So to jump right into things now, the main event. I can't believe that we are 21 days from our event.
Jeff,
So I would like, yes.
Jeff, would you please clarify the date of it, because the date is wrong on
It is the 31st, the last day of the month. And yes, it is wrong. It's going to be corrected today.
Good, thank you.
Okay, all right. That was actually brought to my attention today too, David. So it is in 21 days, so it'll be the 31st of March. Here, we're going to have our main event, our drawing for our $10,000 gift card, our big cooker egg, and we're also going to have the Jill Reno jewelry, the $1,000 Ashley furniture, the Paul Harris fellow, and we're also doing our virtual online auction that we are up to 52 items on right now. Excuse me as I read my text from Robin, who is my co-chair for the event. 52 items on the silent auction, and she is going to be sending out a link on Friday of how to go on, register, and be able to bid. If you don't see anything on there that you like, which there are some really awesome items that are going to be on there that are already on there. If you don't want to bid it, you can just donate some money. So that's another great thing that Rotarians do is, and I would like to give a little shout out to all of our Rotarians that have stepped up. I asked everybody to sell 4 tickets for this event. Some have come up to me and said, hey, I need 4 more tickets. I need 5 more tickets. Some haven't sold all their tickets. They can sell what they can. They give us the tickets back. Well, we have other Rotarians that are coming up and asking for more tickets. So I really appreciate that. This is our only fundraiser of the year. It is a trying time this year, very odd. And next year for Marta, I hope it's much better, and I hope we can get back in person and we can be back at the Ag Barn and have our fellowship together for one big super night of fun. So, but thank you all, everybody, for everything. Please continue to push, continue to sell, have fun with it. Check out our online auction when we get it. Can't let you know what it is yet because it's not live. And then also I'd like to say that our First Responders Week is coming up. April the 7th is going to be our First Responders Luncheon and Awards presentation. And then following Monday on the 12th at Comanche Trace is going to be our golf tournament. There's flyers on your tables out here for you. We will be sending those out again virtually to everybody through Club Runner. So please plan on attending, getting a team, signing up for it, and having a great day at Comanche Trace and playing some good golf. And yes, Mr. Wendling.
The context started this fund in 2016.
Jeff, can you come up here? Because I want them to hear this too, if that's all right with you.
Just an add-on to this fundraising for the golf tournament. In 2016, we started a public safety training fund here at Rotary with a few $1,000s. Chris Avery is probably the only thing I ever sold was an idea to anybody, and he ponied up 20 grand, which helped really jumpstart us. So far since 2016, we spent a little over 51,000. This year, we're obligated right now to no more than $2,400 to train a little over 20 people in the that handle all of our civil service matters. Civil meaning legal papers will be constables and deputy sheriffs and people from other counties. We're also committed to helping the sheriff's office set up their special response team. And we have another initiative that we, if the sheriff approves it, we'll send some people downrange to gang intelligence school or conference in San Antonio. Your dollars are working big time. Many of you that know me and have known me a long time, you know how I operate and how I manage things and how we vet things and all those kind of things. So nobody's getting away with anything, and we're taking care of business. We target those that don't have a lot of budget and help them. And we're also targeting initiatives. Another example is FBI, law enforcement, executive development. We have slotted, or we have paid for 27 slots since 2017 at $6.95 a slot to get people through leadership, command, and executive classes. And all those institutes are 1 week long and are a very credible source of training. So anyway, I just want to mention that to you. We got to have people turn out for this golf tournament so we can make some money to continue to do this and all your support in the past. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you all for your time. We've gone a little bit over, so I'm going to turn it back over to President Tammy before she kicks me off the stage.
Thank you, Jeff. And guys, I want to tell you, I'm so happy to be here with you as a president. Watching what you're doing for our club in this difficult time is amazing. And I know that you will come through for Jeff just like you did for me last year. So if you have your tickets, please get them sold. If you don't think you could sell them, please give them back and we'll get them sold for you. So thank you so much. I thank you again, Mark, for a wonderful presentation and for being here. I'm sorry that we're over a little bit, but we had a lot to say. If you'll join me in the four-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
So good to see you.
So good. I just want to get up. I want to get up and say all those things about how